In the end, guys, this is our fault. It just is, right? We made choices, and these are the consequences of our choices. If she says, no, I want you to stop traveling for work, I want you to change careers, quit, she has that right, and then you need to make a decision. What are you going to choose, her or your career? Has your wife asked you to change, quit, or modify your career because of your sexual acting out? This is very common, especially in my groups. My groups are full of entrepreneurs, business owners, sales professionals, and all my clients, traveling for work, speaking for work, right? They're establishing and maintaining relationships for work, lots of interactions with people. And for a lot of times it involves travel. It's not uncommon for the betrayed partner to request, "I'm not okay with all this travel," especially if you have acted out while traveling, right? Or, "Hey, I don't want you to see any female clients," if you have acted out with a client, right? And then sometimes even, "Hey, I want you to leave your job because maybe you acted out with an employee or somebody who works there." This is a very common request. I would say probably every month there is a gentleman in one of my groups whose wife is requesting this. And I just wanted to talk about it. So this was something that happened to me. I did a lot of speaking before Discovery. I would go to conferences, I would do keynote speaking. It was a profession of mine. It was one of my businesses that I did, these keynote speeches at conferences. My wife had requested that I did not do those, particularly ones in Las Vegas, which almost 100% of my speaking gigs were in Las Vegas. And so she made the request that I stop, that I don't go and do any of the ones that are in Las Vegas. Well, that was a high number. At the time, it was actually 100%, believe it or not. And so I had to more or less kind of nix that portion of my career. And I did it. I tried to propose solutions, right? Hey, what if I travel in and out? What if I don't stay on site, right? And I stay off site, in an Airbnb somewhere or something like this. What if I bring my sister? What if I bring my mother? What if I set up baby cameras in the hotel rooms, right? So that she can monitor my going in and going out, monitor my location on my phone, etc. Try to find a solution. But in the end, she requested, no, I'm not okay with you going there and speaking. I agreed. Why? Because I love her. I love her. She's everything to me. And so I went ahead and did it. Now, I am going to kind of push back on that. In hindsight, there were some consequences to this. For the people listening to this, the betrayed partners listening to this, and the guys listening to this, there's some things to consider. So this is a common one, right? If her nervous system cannot handle you traveling or doing whatever it is that you do for your job, and it's very triggering and activating for her, she's going to be losing her freaking mind every time you're traveling for work or interacting with this particular client or whatever it is. She is. She's going to be at home completely just triggered as all could be, like imploding, texting you, checking your location. I mean, she's not going to be okay, right? And that's no life to live. So you got to understand why these betrayed partners are requesting some of these modifications. It's for their own health. They're truly at home imploding. That's not healthy. That level of stress is not healthy. And it completely robs her of her life. The whole day or 2 days or 3 days she spent completely stressed out and couldn't get anything done. Her life completely halted so that your life can continue. How fair is that? And is that healthy for the marriage or the relationship or healthy for both of your recovery, her recovery and your recovery? It's something we have to weigh out. Does your life get to just go on if our nervous system cannot handle you continuing to do these parts of your career? So that's one thing to consider. Then on the other side, though, we have the addict. Right? I stick up for the addicts plenty. You guys know that, right? They're people too. We have to walk this line here. So again, I'll speak for myself. When I did this, I chose to cease my work travel. I chose my wife over my career. On paper, that sounded like the right decision. And because I love her more than what I do for work, even though I love what I do for work. I have a few businesses I absolutely love. And I killed one of those so that per her request, so that her nervous system could settle down and we could establish some safety and trust before I started going and doing that again. So on paper, it looked like the right decision. However, here's what would end up happening. A year and a half would go by. I didn't do any speaking. I didn't travel to Vegas. And I became incredibly unfulfilled. Got so much joy from that portion of what I did that I started having some contempt and some resentment towards my wife. Does that make sense? Or how can I resent her when I did this, right? And she always brought up the point, and so did our couples therapist, right? At any given moment, I could have said, "I don't care This is important for my mental health. I'm going to go start doing this again for work, and I'm not going to listen. My wife says yes. If that was my reaction right after discovery, I'm not sure we would stay together. She's told me that. Coming back to it, I was robbed of this fulfillment, and it really caused a lot of mental issues for me. I was resentful, this thing that I enjoy that brings me so much fulfillment, and now I can't do it anymore. Right. And it wasn't a career, it wasn't the money. It was truly doing this thing to serve the people who needed me, and something I'm very, very, very good at. Right. So I'm feeling completely unfulfilled. The resentment and contempt is coming because I've worked really, really hard to get on those stages. It is hard to become a keynote speaker. It's very hard to get on stage. And so I worked very hard to get those opportunities. And now I'm watching my reputation that I spent 6 years building. I'm watching it just vanish right in front of me. It's going away. People are not returning my texts anymore. They're not returning my emails anymore. Yeah, I'm not getting invited to these things. I'm forgotten. That doesn't feel great for me, right? Because I really enjoyed doing this and I worked really hard to get there. And so to have this taken away, it really hurt. And so in hindsight, like I'm saying, while it looked really good on paper, I think what I wish we would have done, and this is really hard to ask of a betrayed partner, okay, hey, I'll stop, but when can I get back to it? Right? That's going to probably make her very upset. My wife, anytime I brought up, hey, when do you think I can get back doing this? Huge argument. It did not go well. But that being said, come on, like we're adults. We should be able to have a calm, collected conversation about this, right? So, between the two parties, while it can be very difficult, especially right after discovery, to have timelines, to have any sort of plans, I would definitely say I would consider the partners to think about that a little bit. It has a potential to be very disruptive, to harm someone else's mental health on top of the size of this problem. I mean, everybody listening to this knows what I'm talking about. This problem is incredibly disruptive. When we betray your wife sexually, your life explodes. Both like struggling, just keep your head above water. But again, do we make matters worse? And that's the only thing I'm proposing here is there is the betrayed partner's nervous system to watch, because I think it's inappropriate for you to continue doing all of your things with work that are triggering and activating to her and just letting her sit back home and implode. And her life completely just crumbles. She has no safety, no trust. She's just in free fall, just praying that you're not going to hurt her again. I think that's inappropriate to not strongly consider how we can try and minimize some of her pain. On the other hand, too, though, I also think if the goal is to save the marriage, if that is something we want to do, I do think we need to be a bit mindful of the addict's career fulfillment, because I think a lot of high achieving men, it's not just a job. It's not just a job to them. This is an expression of self. This is an expression of their unique abilities. They're getting a lot of their very real human needs met. Right? Connection and belonging needs are being met. Esteem needs, respect, admiration, appreciation are being met, right? And even some self-actualization needs of actually expressing your unique abilities to an audience that needs you, right? These are human needs, right? So to pull that career away, you're now taking away some pretty significant human needs, and there's probably going to be some mental ramifications to doing that. Now, again, the betrayed partner's reaction is, well, screw you, you shouldn't have done this. Right? If you didn't do this, then we wouldn't even be here. So this is all your fault, not my fault, which is true. And another rebuttal is, oh, you're crying me a river. Like, you don't know the pain you've caused me, which is also true, right? I mean, what we've done to our wives by doing all these things to them, we've completely literally ruined their life. I mean, truly, right? If you're going to compare it to you losing your career, I don't think we can compare the two, right? Because I think what's been done to them, it's just worse. It just is, right? But again, do we remove these very critical human needs from this person they're getting from their career? How well is now he going to do? I'll tell you personally, it was not great for us. I think in hindsight, I wish we handled it differently. In hindsight, I wish that I, put in a bunch of parameters in place to keep her and I safe. Again, traveling with family members, traveling with cameras, and just frequently checking in with her. I think in hindsight, I would have rather gone that route and kept my career, that portion of my career, I should say. In hindsight, I wish we did that, because because what it did to me mentally brought me to a place that I didn't expect to go. I kind of got depressed. I mean, it was very hard for me to be in great recovery and be the husband that my wife needed me to be while we were healing when I'm just imploding as a human. I've got so many unmet needs. I'm so antsy, so frustrated. As a high achiever, there's nothing I love more than expressing myself through my career. It's better than any of my hobbies. It's my favorite thing to do. And so to lose that just put me into a place that, really slowed my recovery and most certainly, without a question, harmed the ability for my wife and I to heal at a faster pace. So again, all this to say, there's all these things to consider. I know right after discovery, it's very hard to think about the long run because your now is so disrupted. It's so painful. You're just free falling through life. Your life's been turned upside down. You don't even know who your husband is, right? So it's hard to forecast year 2, 3 down the road and think, hey, what's the best container for us to heal this marriage? It's very hard to think like that, especially when he's been cheating on you on work trips or sleeping with the secretary or sleeping with this client. It's very hard to just say, hey, yeah, go back to that place where you cheated on me a bunch, right? Like that's a big ask. And so I'm not saying that. I certainly think that we need to consider all of these variables and make the best decision that we can. But the purpose of me recording this episode was just to show everybody it's not black and white. It is gray, it is murky, it is confusing. In many ways, it's a lose-lose situation, right? Like we say yes to this, but then we lose over here. Or we say yes to that, but then we lose over there, right? So in many ways, there's just no winning. It's a very difficult situation. I guess I would conclude by saying this to the guys listening to this. Listen, in the end, guys, this is our fault. It just is, right? We made choices and these are the consequences of our choices. In the end, if she says, no, I want you to stop traveling for work, I want you to change careers, quit, when she's not willing to budge on that, she doesn't need to budge. She does not need to budge. She has every right to stick up for herself and what she wants. And if what she wants is for you to quit your job or stop traveling for work, and she does not want to be flexible with that, she has that right. She has that right. And then you need to make a decision. What are you going to choose, her or your career? Like I said, what did I choose? I chose my wife. And I don't regret it because that was the right choice. I did underestimate the consequences of making that choice and what that would do to me mentally. But nonetheless, that was her request. According to her, there was no flexibility. And so I went ahead and complied. I think my wife and I both now in hindsight kind of underestimated the unhealthy things that would do to me and the ramifications that would have on us, really healing and building a new relationship. So all these things, it's complicated. And I hope that this episode was helpful. Maybe it was super confusing. There is no, just like many things in the sex addiction and betrayal trauma space, it's not black and white. It's custom to the couple. It's custom to the person's career and their field of work. There's a lot of factors in here that are not black and white. One of my clients, like if she makes him quit, there really isn't another job for him in that category. There just isn't. And so if he has to quit, then he has to go find a new career that he may not enjoy or probably won't enjoy as much as the one that he has, right? And that's really tough, right? So there's not even a lateral shift. It's a complete 180. But again, if that's what she needs to be safe, what are we going to do, right? We don't really have an option, and she has every right to advocate for her own nervous system and her own safety, right? And then ultimately, guys, these are the consequences of our actions. So it's something to think about. It's something to consider. I think we blindly just say, hey, because you cheated, you have to do whatever she says. I would just encourage the couples to think a little bit bigger and to the best of your ability, think a little bit more long term, because there are financial consequences, fulfillment, and mental health consequences to all of these decisions. And I think we need to consider everything before we pull the trigger on blowing up somebody's career, because, some of that stuff's irreversible, right? So lots to think about before we make a decision such as that.